My name is Avery Ross. I'm 36 years old and currently living and working in Santa Fe, New Mexico. That morning, while waiting for coffee at my usual spot, I opened Instagram out of habit. And my blood ran cold. On the screen were a series of photos posted less than 20 minutes ago. My father, R. Harold Ross, sat at the center of a dinner table, beaming under the warm lights of an upscale Italian restaurant. To his left was my mother, Cynthia, in the emerald silk dress I gave her last year. To his right, my sister Reagan, effortlessly graceful as always, and right next to Reagan, resting casually against her shoulder, was Graham Blake. The man who once borrowed $42,000 from me and disappeared like he never existed. I stared at the photo. A 3-tier cake, candles shaped like the number 65, glasses of red wine glistening. Everything pointed to one clear fact. Yesterday was my father's birthday. A full-blown, planned, reserved dinner, with invitations and a guest list. Everyone was there. Except me. A notification popped up. A message from my mother. It was just a spontaneous dinner, sweetheart. Everyone happened to be nearby, so we decided to celebrate. Spontaneous? At a fine dining restaurant in the middle of town, on the exact day of Dad's 65th birthday? With cake, Italian wine, and a complete guest list? I wasn't born yesterday. I zoomed in on the photo. A bottle of Barolo 2013 stood at the center of the table. The exact wine I recommended to Dad just 3 weeks ago when he called and asked, "Avery, what would you suggest for a special occasion?" He'd sounded unusually excited. I'd spent the whole evening researching and listed 3 options. Barolo was number 1. And now, there it was. At the dinner I'd been excluded from. I hadn't even realized I was gripping my phone so tightly that my fingers had gone numb. Graham was there. The man who drained my savings account with promises to pay me back as soon as the next round of funding came through, then vanished. No goodbye. No text. No email. But today, he was back. Welcomed, toasted, seated right next to my father. I stared quietly out the cafe window, where the early sun had begun to filter in. There weren't words sharp enough to cut through what I felt. Being shut out by my own family. Not forgotten. Excluded. On purpose. I let out a dry, bitter laugh. Graham wasn't just present. Reagan had her arm around him in the second photo. Her caption, "Family is everything," followed by a bright red heart emoji. As if my relationship with Graham had never existed. As if the money he owed me was imaginary. I scrolled down. There was even a video. The happy birthday song echoed. My mom rested her hand on Graham's shoulder as my father blew out the candles. The server brought out cake. Everyone clapped. Reagan kissed Dad on the cheek, and then Graham stood and raised his glass to him. My father laughed loudly and said, "Thank you, son." Son? I nearly dropped my phone. I was the one who helped Dad when he hit financial trouble last year. I fixed the roof at the lake house. I paid for Mom's knee surgery. I never asked for anything in return. And now, after everything Graham had done to me, financially and emotionally, he got to be called son. The coffee on my table had gone cold. I didn't take a single sip. Everything inside me shattered, but not enough to make me cry. Maybe because this wasn't surprising anymore. I'd always been the extra in the family. The one they invited when convenient, left out when not. But this time, they made a fatal mistake. They didn't just forget me. They gave my seat to Graham. I reopened an old email folder labeled Graham Muller U. Argent. I'd never deleted a thing. His pleas, the delays, the wire transfers. I had saved everything for one reason only. In case he ever resurfaced. And now, it seemed, that day had come. I texted Marianne, my former attorney, just 4 words. "Ready to move yet?" Less than 30 seconds later, she replied, Always ready. I left the cafe with my palms still trembling, the feeling of betrayal coiled in my chest like a rope, tightening around each breath. But beneath the sting was something else. Intuition. This wasn't just anger from being excluded. Something felt off in those photos from last night. Something familiar. Driving home, I connected to Bluetooth and called Kellen, my longtime friend and financial advisor from Austin. He once helped review investment terms back when I still foolishly trusted Graham. Graham Blake? Kellen's voice shot through the speaker after I explained the dinner. Avery, are you serious? He's tied up in some fake blockchain venture in Phoenix. I just heard about it a couple weeks ago. I slammed the brakes near a gravel pullout in El Dorado. Blockchain? You mean Graham's fundraising again? Yup. Promising massive returns, targeting people with disposable money. The same con. Looks like he's going after retirees now. The ones who are easy to charm. I gripped the wheel, my mouth bone dry. Retirees. Disposable assets. My father, Harold, had just retired 2 months ago, after selling his stake in his logistics company. Mom had told me, your dad wants to dabble in something fun. As long as it's not volatile stock, I don't mind. What's hotter than blockchain? And who's more perfect for Graham than a freshly retired man with liquid assets and no investment direction? Kellen, I said, do you still have the pitch deck Graham sent to those Phoenix investors? Yep. I'll forward it to your email. 15 minutes later, I was back in my living room, laptop open, file downloaded. The first page displayed the logo, Bastion Chain Ventures. Sounded like something straight out of a low-budget Netflix drama. The introduction read, "We are seeking strategic partners to expand blockchain application in regional logistics." Logistics. My dad had spent over 20 years running a logistics company. This wasn't a coincidence. Nothing ever was with Graham. I scrolled to the advisory team section. There he was. Graham. Centered. Gray suit. Smug smile. Below were grand claims about co-founding 2 successful startups and raising over $5 million in capital. Lie. I opened the Graham Janet folder and pulled up an old email. Just help me this once, and I promise you 10% equity after the next round closes. I'd believed him then. That message had started a long chain of broken promises. When my phone rang, I nearly jumped. It was Dad. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, voice hesitant. "I just received a proposal from your old friend Graham. It's impressive." I bit my lip hard enough to taste blood. He's not my friend. He's the man who drained my trust, my savings, and my peace of mind. "Are you thinking of investing?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. "I haven't decided. But Reagan's supportive. She said Graham's changed. That he's matured." I felt a lump rise in my throat. "Dad. Graham borrowed over 40 grand from me. Then ghosted. Never repaid a dime." I stayed quiet because I didn't want to make it worse. There was a long pause on the line. Then Dad exhaled slowly. "I know things between you and him didn't end well. But relationships are one thing. Business is another." "Did you see me at the birthday dinner?" I asked sharply. "Oh right. You didn't. Because I wasn't invited." "But Graham was." "Your mom said you were busy." No one asked. I didn't wait. Before he could say more, I cut in. "Do you have an email? I'll send you some documents." About Graham. About what he did to me, and others. "Avery, this isn't about making you take sides, it's about making sure you know who you're trusting with your money, your name, your legacy." I hung up, and opened a new document titled, Evidence. Graham Blake. Emails. Bank statements. Screenshots. Draft contracts. Even the old chat where he called me stupid but obedient. I compiled it all. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I was doing this because they had invited a con artist into their home, into their celebration, into their hearts. And thought I would stay quiet. Like always. I sat in front of my laptop, the glow from the screen the only light in the apartment at 1 a.m. Outside, Santa Fe was quiet as always, but inside me, everything was loud. My fingers moved fast, opening file after file. Every conversation, screenshot, and message I once tried to forget. But this time, I wasn't revisiting them with sorrow. I was cold, clear, and focused. A new folder appeared on my desktop. Graham, for Dad. I started compiling. First up was an email Graham sent me last June. Avery, just trust me one more time. This project is going to hit big. Once this round closes, you'll never have to worry about money again. I remember crying after reading that. Not because I was moved, but because I knew I'd been blind. Next came a screenshot of a WhatsApp conversation, where Graham explained why he needed $28,000 within 72 hours, and why he couldn't sign any agreement due to out-of-state investment laws. What I didn't know back then was that he sent nearly the same message to another woman, who somehow found me after spotting a vague comment I left on LinkedIn. I added her email to the folder, along with a PDF listing Graham's bank accounts. One of them matched a suspicious LLC, Bastion Development Ventures. Off by one word from Bastion Chain Ventures, the name he pitched to my dad. It wasn't just deception, it was a system built to exploit. Multiple layers, multiple fronts. I clipped an article from a financial paper in Arizona, investigating scam models that target retirees with sophisticated investment pitches. Then I wrote a note below it. Dad, I know this isn't easy to hear. But if you need a reason to stop, here are 17. Marianne, my attorney, and I had verified over the past 2 months. Finally, I attached an audio recording of a call between me and Graham, 3 weeks after he vanished. In it, he said, Avery, don't make this complicated. I don't want you to become the problem right before this takes off. His tone was calm, even sweet, but laced with quiet threat. I typed the email subject line, about Graham and Bastion Misane. Please read before deciding. And in the body I kept it simple. Dad, I know you're an independent man, and I respect that. But I also know Graham. I trusted him. I lost everything. And I stayed silent. I'm not staying silent anymore. The documents attached aren't to make you angry. They're to show you. He's not here for family, he's here for your money. If you still decide to invest after reading all this, I won't stop you. But at least you won't walk into the dark without a flashlight. Love. Avery. I hit send. The screen blinked. Email sent successfully. I sank back into my chair. Not from exhaustion, but from release. I'd finally done the right thing. Not 10 minutes later my phone rang. Dad? I hesitated, then picked up. Avery, he said, his voice rough. I read it. Every word. I held my breath. Silence. There are things I never knew, he continued, and some things I knew, but chose to ignore. Like when you tried to warn me about Graham before. I'm not trying to prove who was right, I whispered. I just don't want to see you get hurt. More silence. You know, I ran a company for almost 3 decades, he said. But no one teaches you how to spot a con artist in a tailored suit with a charming smile. I bit my lip. Thank you, he said. And I'm sorry for leaving you out of the dinner, that was my fault. I turned my face away. I wouldn't let the tears fall, not yet. So what will you do? I asked. He exhaled. First, I'm canceling the meeting with Graham on Monday. Then I'm calling Virgil, my old legal advisor. There's a lot that needs rechecking. From the ground up. And then, in the same steady tone he used when I was a kid, he added, "You don't have to do this alone anymore." Right then, a message lit up my screen. It was from Mom. "What did you just send your father? Solomon says he's furious and threatening legal action. What drama are you starting now, Avery?" I took a screenshot. I didn't reply. 3 days after that email, I got a call from an unknown number at exactly 5:48 a.m. The screen lit up. Virgil L. My father's retired financial advisor, the man who helped him run Ross Logistics for 17 years. "Avery, good morning," he said. "I just finished reviewing the documents you sent, Harold. I just wanted to say, you did the right thing. And, well, there are going to be consequences. Hard ones." I sat upright in bed. "Uncle Virgil, is he okay?" "Is fine. Angry, but clear-headed. And there's something else you need to know. Graham didn't show up alone." I gripped the phone tighter. "What do you mean?" "Cynthia, your mother was the one who arranged for Graham to reconnect with Harold. They've been in contact by email for the past 2 months." The air left the room. I needed a few seconds before I could speak. "You're sure?" "Very sure. Harold authorized me to check his private inbox, and Avery, this wasn't just quiet correspondence. She was actively pushing the investment. One email from her to Graham had the subject line, 'Harold won't listen to me, but he trusts Reagan, she'll convince him.' Reagan, my sister. The one who preaches family values on Instagram every weekend." "She knew?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "She didn't just know, she was involved. There's a full thread between Reagan and Graham strategizing how to pitch the deck to your father. Notes on slides, edits, all in Reagan's handwriting." I collapsed into my chair, heart pounding. My mother. My sister. They weren't just on Graham's side. They were helping him. "Uncle Virgil, what's Dad going to do?" I asked, not sure I wanted the answer. He paused. "Moved into the lake house this morning, said he needed space to think, and he asked me to contact a lawyer." "A lawyer?" "A divorce attorney." That evening, I received a message from Reagan. "It's a shame you chose to destroy everything. Mom and I were trying to fix this family. You, instead, decided to dig up the past and turn everyone against each other." I didn't reply. But I took a screenshot and sent it to Virgil. An hour later, my mom called. I wasn't going to answer, but something made me press accept. "Avery," she began, "I don't understand why you're making this such a big deal. You wanted Dad to invest in a scam. You're calling it a scam because you're still bitter Graham left you, but no one else sees it that way. He's changed." I let out a short, bitter laugh. "Do you even know how many people he's conned? Or do you only know the sweet nothings he whispered over wine? I did it because your father needed a new purpose after retirement, a project, something exciting. No, you did it because you can't stand that he makes decisions without asking you first. And because you hate that he listens to me now instead of you." Silence. Then her voice dropped. "You embarrassed him, in front of family, in front of friends. I don't know if this relationship can be salvaged." "Which relationship?" I asked. "Yours and Dad's, or yours and Graham's?" I hung up. My heart was still racing. But it wasn't fear anymore. It was rage, honed and steady. That night, my father called. "Avery," he said softly, "I want to thank you. Davidson Markin. I didn't You helped me see the truth. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary." "Are you okay?" I asked. "No. But I'm starting to be." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I've signed the papers, Cynthia will get them Monday. Reagan might be furious, but I've run out of excuses. You can't build trust on manipulation." I bit my lip. Hearing that didn't bring relief, like I expected. It hurt. Because my family hadn't been torn apart by outsiders. It had imploded from the inside. "I'll be okay," he said. but I need time. And, if you're willing, I'd like you to come to the lake house next week. Just us, no one else. I'll come, I said. He was quiet for a moment. I've been wondering, how long has it been since I let you speak without someone interrupting? I let out a soft, genuine laugh. The first in days. Too long, Dad. But that night, as I packed a small bag for the trip, my phone lit up. A message from Graham. You have no idea what you've just done. This isn't over, Avery. I stared at the screen. Then opened the Graham URGent folder and added a fresh screenshot. And told myself, no, Graham. For me, this is only just beginning. Graham's message still sat boldly on my screen. You have no idea what you've just done. This isn't over, Avery. I didn't delete it. I didn't reply. I simply forwarded it to Marianne with a short note. Ongoing threats. The next morning, Marianne called. Her tone was more serious than ever. Avery, I just got off a call with a contact in D.C. The SEC is opening a federal investigation. They've had Bastion Chain on their radar since earlier this month, and what you submitted is a critical piece. I gripped my phone. My heart pounded. They're investigating Graham? Tack it, just Graham, the entire network behind him. And here's the twist. You're not the only victim with evidence. I shot up from my chair. You mean someone else has come forward? Yes. And she's requested to meet with you. At 3 p.m., I sat in a small cafe near downtown Santa Fe. Across from me was a woman with long silver hair, thick glasses, and cautious eyes. Her name was Loretta Gaines, 64 years old, a retired chief accountant from a financial firm in Scottsdale. I met Graham at an investment seminar, she began, her voice low but clear. He pitched Bastion like it was the greatest invention since cell phones. I invested $90,000, all gone. I stayed silent, letting her continue. He promised equity. Sent a preliminary agreement, but with no real protection. When I asked questions, he said it was standard startup process. 6 weeks later, he disappeared. I pulled out my phone and showed her the draft contract Graham once sent me. She studied it, then nodded. That's the one. But the company name on mine said Bastion Tech. A chill ran down my spine. Though he's using multiple shell companies. Loretta placed a USB drive on the table. I saved everything. Messages, emails, even call recordings. I've already sent part of it to Marianne. But you should have a copy too. There's one clip you'll want to hear. I plugged the USB into my laptop. In the file labeled call_recording_March_12. MIG. Graham's voice rang out. Confident and disturbingly familiar. Don't worry, I've got someone inside the family of a potential investor. His daughter used to date me. She has no idea. Once I get him to commit, we close the Series A, then pull out. My blood ran cold. His daughter. No one else but me. That line confirmed every suspicion, every hollow feeling I had buried. To Graham, I was never anything more than a pathway to cash. I sat frozen for a moment, then looked at Loretta. Thank you. Really? She gave a quiet smile. We can't stay silent forever. Someone like him can't be allowed to keep doing this. 3 days later, the headlines broke. Graham Blake was arrested at Flagstaff Pulliam Airport, attempting to board a domestic flight to Nevada using a fake passport. Federal authorities confirmed he was under investigation for investment fraud, money laundering, and operating shell companies to defraud elderly investors. Initial charges listed over $2.4 million in losses from 11 victims across 4 states, and that number was still climbing. I was at the lake house with Dad when the news aired on CNN. He stood frozen in front of the screen, gripping his coffee mug. That's the man your mother called a promising investment, he muttered, disbelief heavy in his voice. The one Regan said was ambitious. I looked out over the still water. feeling like I was floating through a surreal dream. Dad. I used to think I was the only fool. He turned to me, eyes somber. No, you were the only one brave enough to speak up. And because of that, you saved a lot of people. Right then, my phone lit up with a message from Marianne. The SEC has formally requested statements from both you and Loretta. What the two of you submitted was enough to escalate this to federal prosecution. You did what the system couldn't do in 2 years. I closed my phone without saying a word. Because at that moment, I wasn't hearing the news anchors. I wasn't thinking about credit or closure. I was only hearing one voice. Cold. Arrogant. Unforgettable. This isn't over, Avery. He was right. It wasn't over. It was justice. Just getting started. I was sitting on the lake house porch, peppermint tea in hand, when my phone started buzzing nonstop. Not one message, but dozens. Old friends, colleagues, even former clients were texting me. Are you okay? What's going on with Regan's Facebook? Avery, what's your mom saying about you? My stomach dropped. I opened Facebook. Regan Ross's profile, my sister, had turned into a full-blown public smear campaign. Her latest post was a photo of me speaking at a small business conference 2 years ago, captioned in all caps. A woman who fakes being a victim to destroy her own family. Pinned at the top was a comment from my mother, Cynthia. Avery has always been jealous of her sister's success and is trying to drag everyone down with her. The accusations against Graham are about a failed relationship, not justice. I swallowed hard. The post had over 700 shares, most from old family friends, people who'd once attended our holiday dinners, who hugged me at graduation, now leaving comments like, I always knew she was a bit off, total drama queen, wealthy but zero loyalty. Regan didn't stop there. Another post included a cropped email between me and Marianne. Only the line, I can't let them keep living in peace like this, was visible. The rest intentionally blurred. Her caption read, Still need proof this is all about revenge? I gripped my phone. Not from rage, but from deep, aching disappointment. I used to believe that, no matter how biased Mom was, or how self-righteous Regan acted, they'd never stoop this low. I was wrong. And this time, I wasn't staying quiet. I opened my laptop and created a new folder. Family. Counterattack. Every screenshot, every comment, every doctored image, I saved it all. I downloaded the original email thread with Marianne, the full, unedited version. I sent everything to her with one line. Let's begin. Marianne called almost immediately. I expected pushback, she said, but not recklessness like this. They're rewriting the story, I told her. In their version, I'm the unsable jealous destroyer. Fine. The more data we collect, the stronger our case. Social media cuts both ways. An hour later, Marianne sent me a preliminary legal memo titled Deformation and Malicious Misrepresentation, Initial Grounds. Underneath were bullet points. False narratives, dissemination of misinformation, fabricated evidence, reputational damage and financial harm. Her advice. No public responses. We answer through legal channels. I followed it exactly. No posts, no messages, no calls. I just kept collecting evidence. Within days, I discovered my mother had sent a private message to one of my major clients, claiming I had dishonest conduct with family and ethical red flags. That client, thankfully, was Debbie Keller, who'd seen me fight tooth and nail to build my firm from scratch. She forwarded me the message, with a note. Avery, I know the truth. But you should know they're willing to go this far. I added it to the folder. By now, this wasn't personal. This was a fight to defend my name. And then, something unexpected happened. A message came from an anonymous Instagram account. It included a shaky phone video filmed over a backyard fence. In the clip, my mother and Regan sat outside, voices low but crystal clear. Just say she was emotionally unstable after the breakup. People will believe it, especially if she doesn't speak up. Reagan. And if Avery sues? We'll see if she has the nerve to go up against her own blood. I froze. Eyes locked on the screen. Whoever filmed this stayed hidden. But they'd just handed me the smoking gun. I forwarded the clip to Marianne immediately. Her reply was short. Game over. Saturday night, as I was organizing legal files with Marianne to prepare for submission, my phone rang. Not a text. Not an email. A video call. And the name flashing across the screen made me freeze. Reagan Ross. I hesitated. My finger hovered over decline, then pulled away. I accepted the call. Reagan appeared in the frame. Hair messy, eyes dark with exhaustion, barefaced. She was sitting in a car, front seat reclined, wearing a worn gray hoodie I recognized. It used to be Dad's gardening sweatshirt. Avery, she began, voice thick. Do you have a minute? I didn't answer. She continued. I just watched the backyard video, that clip. I didn't ask how she got it, I just stared. She swallowed hard, then let out a bitter, joyless laugh. I used to think I was good at controlling the narrative, knew how to make people believe my version of the story. But now, I'm not even sure I believe myself anymore. I leaned back in my chair. So what did you see in that video? The truth. And myself. As a puppet. Mom pulled the strings. Graham set the stage. And I was just proud to be center spotlight. But I was wrong. Completely. Silence. Reagan looked directly into the camera. I went to Mom's house earlier today. She was packing. Looks like she's leaving town for a while. Till no one. But before she left, she still wouldn't admit she was wrong. I nodded slightly. That didn't surprise me. I asked her why she made things up, why she came after you online. And she said one thing. Because she always wants to prove she's better than you. Reagan's voice broke. That's when I realized. She didn't just manipulate you. She manipulated me too. We were both stuck in the family fantasy she invented. I stayed silent. Part disbelief, part uncertainty about how to respond. Avery. I know an apology won't erase what I've done. But I have to say it. Say what? That I was wrong. That I betrayed you. Not just with words, but by staying silent when you needed someone to stand up for you. She pulled out a stack of papers. Screenshots of her posts, comments, and DMs about me. I just submitted everything to Marianne, even the messages Mom sent me, pushing me to spread the lies. And tonight, I'm posting a public correction. No misunderstood intentions, no spin, just the truth. I closed my eyes for a moment, then looked at my sister. Not with rage, but with a soft, aching grief. Wait now. After all these years of standing with Mom? Reagan looked down. Because I saw you standing firm. And I realized that I, the one who always seemed in control, completely fell apart when the truth came out. She looked up, eyes red. And because Dad told me something last night that kept me awake. When did he say? No. He said, Reagan, you can choose silence, but remember, by staying silent, you're helping Graham con more people. That night, Reagan posted. Her profile picture was just a blank white square. No filter, no glam caption. The post was short, only a few paragraphs. I, Reagan Ross, admit that the posts I made about my sister, Avery Ross, were false. I made them in a moment of chaos, under pressure from family, and out of blind belief in a con man named Graham Blake. Avery told the truth, and I, rather than standing beside her, chose to attack her. I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness, but I will take responsibility, publicly, and legally if necessary. 3 minutes later, my mother posted again. Same tired tone. Don't let anyone tarnish the bond between mother and daughter. There are always two sides to a story. I didn't bother reading the rest. An hour later, Regan sent me a screenshot of the email she had just sent to the SEC, requesting to add testimony and submit documents she had withheld. I replied, "Thank you. I know this wasn't easy." Her response was only 4 words. Better late than never. The next morning, while walking along the lakeside trail with Dad, he handed me a light brown envelope. "Regan sent this, said not to open it until you're ready." I nodded and tucked it into my jacket. Dad smiled. "I lost a pretend family. And found a real one. I think you did too." I squeezed his hand gently. A breeze swept through the trees, carrying the cool mist of lake water. The wounds weren't healed yet. But for the first time in years, I could feel them healing. In the right direction. That August, I officially moved into my father's lake house on the shore of Heron Lake, in northern New Mexico. A 3-bedroom wooden cabin facing still, mirror-like water. The old porch where I used to sit and play with dolls had become my workspace. For years, I thought coming home meant going backward. But this time, I wasn't returning to a house. I was returning to myself. Dad had fully retired. His mornings were for reading the paper, afternoons for mowing the lawn, and evenings for sipping martinis while listening to his old radio. Sometimes, quiet lingered too long at dinner, residue from the divorce. But for the first time, I saw a kind of peace in him that felt real. I converted the old living room into a design studio. Past clients still sent over work, but now I only took on projects that stirred something in me. No more 2 a.m. deadlines. No more pretending to be perfect to feel worthy. I even picked up where I left off, on that children's book I started sketching years ago. Back when Graham and I lived in that cramped Santa Monica apartment, and I doodled on the backs of grocery receipts. One morning while I was making coffee, Dad handed me an envelope. No return address. Just, "For Avery, from Mom." I didn't open it right away. It sat on my desk for a week. Then, one stormy night, wind howling through the windows, I opened it. Not with hope, but like turning the last page of a story just to close the book. Inside, she wrote, "Avery, I don't know if you'll want to read this. But I need to write it. Even if it's only to finally admit what I've avoided my whole life. I was wrong. I chose appearances over protecting you. I sided with Graham, not because I believed him over you, but because I couldn't bear for others to see a crack in our family. I don't ask for forgiveness, but if one day you can live without anger in your heart, I hope you do. Not because I deserve peace, but because you do." I read it through without crying, just felt something loosen inside me, like a curtain finally giving way to a long dead breeze. The following week, Regan visited the lake house for the first time in months. She brought a wooden box. Inside were all the originals. The unedited posts, texts, emails that had been twisted online. "Your lawyer will need these," she said. I know. No edge in her voice, no defensiveness. Just a woman learning how to be decent again. From the beginning. That night, we sat on the porch eating Dad's homemade chicken noodle soup. Regan told me she'd enrolled in an online creative writing class. "I'm thinking of writing about what it's like living in someone else's shadow," she said, "and learning how to step out without feeling empty." I smiled. "Write it. You've got a voice. Just, maybe don't use it to silence others this time." She nodded. No comeback, no wounded pride. For the first time, I believed Regan was listening. Not to the unstapled little sister, but to a woman, finally walking free from the old family script. On a crisp day, as summer turned to fall, I sat on the porch with my laptop open, scrolling through sketches for the nearly finished children's book. On screen, 2 fox sisters. One abandoned in the woods, one led astray by a noisy crowd. In the final scene, they don't try to rewind the past. They simply accept who they've become and meet there. A notification chimed, a message from Marianne. Successfulized the case. Graham's facing 9 felony charges. The court accepted Reagan's materials as supporting evidence. His attorney just offered a civil settlement. Do you want to take it? I typed back. No. I want the truth heard in court. No one gets to buy silence. I hit send and looked out at the lake. Dad sitting on the bench, paperback in hand, eyes fixed on the horizon glowing in sunset. In that moment, I knew I didn't need a perfect family anymore. I just needed one that knew how to make things right. And while healing takes time and the scars still sting, I knew I was facing the right direction now. No more pretending, no more tolerating, only truth, and me. Avery's story reminds us that truth can hurt, but staying silent in the face of lies destroys far more. In real life, some families build a flawless image through control, pressure, and pretense, but finding the courage to speak up, even when alone, is the first step toward reclaiming your worth. Avery didn't just expose a con artist, she broke free from a role forced upon her and rebuilt her life with quiet strength, selective forgiveness, and a belief in doing what's right. What do you think about Avery's journey and the choices she made? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about family, healing, and finding your voice. I stared at my inbox for 3 days straight, where the subject line, Columbia University Presidential Scholarship, Financial Verification Required, sat like a cruel reminder. I knew what they needed. Just a simple statement confirming that my college fund was still intact. The same fund my grandmother, Margaret, had quietly built from her elementary school teacher's salary since the day I was born. The fund I believed would help me escape our fog-covered town in Montana, get into college, and pursue my dream of studying psychology. But now, that fund was nothing more than an empty memory. My name is Evelyn Turner. I'm 21 years old, living with my parents and older sister in a vintage 2-story house at the end of Pine Hill Road. And I'm watching my future collapse in front of me, with nothing to do but choke down the panic. That afternoon, when I walked into the kitchen, Mom was carefully arranging wedding flower samples on the table. Purple orchids, white peonies, even imported Italian blossoms. The entire dining table was covered in satin swatches, invitation proofs, and thick, deposit invoices. My sister Amanda was getting married next month, and her wedding was consuming the whole family. Mom, I need to talk to you. About the college fund, I said, my voice rasping with exhaustion. She didn't look up. Evelyn, we've already been over this. The wedding's coming up, and these flowers won't pay for themselves. But that money was mine. Grandma Margaret left it for me, I said, my voice trembling as a wave of quiet panic rose inside me. Don't start that again, she cut me off, finally glancing up, her eyes sharp and cold. A wedding only happens once in a lifetime. College will always be there. People take out loans all the time. You'll be fine. The front door suddenly swung open. Amanda walked in wearing nude high heels and carrying a dozen full shopping bags. Mom, you won't believe the bridesmaid dresses I found. They're all matching, burgundy 100% satin, so luxe. I stood frozen, as if someone had slapped me. The same mother who had just dismissed me, lit up like spring sunshine. Oh my goodness, those sound gorgeous. Show me. They both squealed as they dumped the bags across the table, right on top of the scholarship paperwork I'd just printed out. Careful, you're covering my documents, I said softly. Amanda gave a careless laugh. Oh, sorry, but look at these. Custom embroidered silk robes, only $35 each, total steal for something this perfect, right? I picked up my now increased papers, bit my lip and quietly headed back upstairs. Behind me I heard Mom giggle. She seriously compared some dusty old college fund to her sister's big day? That night, I knocked on Dad's study door. He was glued to his laptop, but he let me in. Dad, why didn't you say anything when Mom and Amanda drained my college fund? He paused his typing and sighed, like I was bothering him with something trivial. Evelyn, you're smart. You'll get scholarships, or work part-time. Amanda needs this wedding. She deserves one perfect day. You know how respected the Pattersons are. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What about Grandma's instructions? She made it clear that money was only for my education. My mother didn't understand how the real world works. Priorities change, life changes, he said, already turning back to his screen. I retreated to my room, heart pounding. From my drawer, I pulled out the last birthday card Grandma Margaret had sent me, just weeks before she passed. Inside, in her neat handwriting, she'd written, "To my clever girl. I've already made sure everything's ready, just in case." Those last 3 words, just in case, cut deep. Just in case what? What had she seen coming? I grabbed my phone, scrolled through my contacts, and stopped on a name I'd never imagined dialing. My fingers shook as I pressed call. Henderson Law Office, how can I help you? Hi. This is Evelyn Turner. My grandmother was Margaret Henderson. There was a beat of silence on the other end, then the woman's voice returned. Suddenly firm, serious. I know who you are. You need to come to the office tomorrow at 9 a.m., and don't tell anyone, no one. The next morning, I arrived at Henderson Law Office 30 minutes early, holding the folder I had kept hidden in my drawer for years, copies of my education trust, and a preliminary version of Grandma Margaret's will I'd glimpsed back in high school. The receptionist led me into a private office. Ruth Henderson, daughter of Grandma's former legal partner, was a woman in her mid-50s. Her salt and pepper hair pinned neatly, and her sharp eyes scanning right through me. Evelyn. I imagine this isn't easy. But your grandmother once told me, if the day ever comes when she shows up, listen with your heart. Because that means she's standing alone. I bit my lip, throat tightening. Ruth opened a drawer and pulled out a sealed, ivory envelope. We'll get to this in a bit. First, I need to confirm something. Are you certain your education fund has been fully emptied? Yes, they never told me. There was no consent at all, I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. She nodded. I understand. And now, Evelyn, I need your full confidentiality. What your grandmother put in place isn't simple. That afternoon when I came home, Amanda and Mom's laughter rang from the living room, stabbing at my ears like needles. I didn't go upstairs. I walked straight in, still holding the printed enrollment schedule and financial verification form from Columbia. Mom, we need to talk, now. She didn't even look up from the seating chart. Amanda sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by bridesmaid gift boxes. Evelyn, I'm busy. Don't cause a scene, she said in a monotone, like swatting at a fly. You used my entire college fund to pay for flowers, the venue, the live band. Do you even realize what that means for me? I said, gripping the papers so hard they started to wrinkle. Amanda glanced up, eyebrows raised. Oh God, you're still on that? Plenty of people take out loans, it's not the end of the world. Mom finally set down her pen, sighing like I was the most exhausting person alive. You'll still go to school. Smart girls always find a way. But a wedding? This can't be postponed. This is your sister's moment. I'm not sorry for putting that first. Putting it first? I choked. What about Grandma's promise? All those years she saved for me. Mom's eyes narrowed. My mother didn't understand how things work anymore. She was always idealistic. Amanda needs me more. She doesn't have anything except this wedding. You? You have a scholarship, a brain. Don't be selfish. That word, selfish, landed like a stone. I almost lost my balance. That evening, I stepped into Dad's study. He was reviewing the guest list for a political fundraiser. He planned to run in the next election cycle. Dad, We need to talk. Still about the tuition money? He asked without looking up. Evelyn, you're strong. You'll manage. I believe in you. It's not about belief, it's about fairness, it's about respect. He looked up, frowning. Evelyn, sometimes you need to understand. Families can't cater to everyone. Amanda needs to move on from her past. She lost a pregnancy. She got cheated on. This wedding is her fresh start. You'd ruin that? I stood still. So being a victim automatically made someone the priority? Meanwhile I, who kept a 4 GPA and worked part-time for 3 years, got benched so she could start over? No one should have to sell someone else's future to rebuild their own, I said, every word cutting through the air. You say you love both of us, but your actions say otherwise. He put down his whiskey glass, voice quieter. Life isn't as neat as textbooks. One day, you'll understand. I walked out, heart heavy. On my way to my room, I passed Amanda leaning on the balcony, wineglass in hand, staring into the dark yard. You're blowing this way out of proportion, she said without turning. You'll get to go to college anyway. Stop making everything difficult. I looked at her. The satin of her dress caught the dim light from the hallway. The whole family revolved around her like planets around a sun. Difficult for who? I asked. For you? Or for the people who think you deserve more just because you know how to cry on cue? She turned to me, eyes wide. But I didn't wait for a response. I went straight to my room, door clicking shut behind me. My fingers still clenched the scholarship form, nails digging into my skin. I sat down, opened my laptop. Ruth Henderson's email was still there. Subject line, clear. Documents to review before moving forward. I clicked it open. This wasn't over. And for the first time, I knew with absolute clarity. They woke someone they thought would stay quiet. But I wasn't going to be quiet anymore. I couldn't sleep that night. Music from downstairs echoed until nearly 1 a.m. Amanda was testing wedding playlists, while my mother discussed how to build a fresh orchid arch with the floral designer. I lay in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling, as if I could peel back the reason why the people I called family could so easily sacrifice my future. Around 2 a.m., I got up and opened the dresser drawer where I kept everything tied to Grandma Margaret. Inside was a small wooden box, its lid worn by time, with a hand-carved inscription. For my Evelyn, when she's ready. I opened the lid. A familiar, gentle scent wafted out. Old paper blended with the cheap but sweet lavender oil she used. Inside was a birthday card, the last one she ever sent me, for my 18th birthday, just a few months before she passed. I remembered reading it before, but I had never paid attention to the back. I opened the card. On the front were 2 owls in graduation caps, and inside, written in purple ink in her neat cursive. To my clever girl, remember? Not everyone will think about your future. But I have. Just in case. Just in case. Those 3 words echoed in my head, sending a chill down my spine. She knew. Somehow, she had seen what I hadn't been ready to admit. That my parents, the ones who looked so respectable and polished, would take everything from me if it served their purposes. I searched the box again and noticed a folded slip of paper tucked under the velvet lining. One single line, written in a fine, deliberate hand. Ruth Henderson. 406 5 5 5 8 9 2 7. Call if needed. Tell no one. I picked up my phone, hands shaking so badly I had to rest my elbows on my knees for support. I dialed each number slowly, like I was entering the code to a safe. Henderson Law Office, this is Ruth. How can I help you? I took a deep breath. My name is Evelyn Turner. My grandmother was Margaret Henderson. There was a short silence on the other end. Then Ruth's voice changed. Sharper, more guarded. I know who you are, say nothing else over the phone. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning at 9? I have a morning shift, but... Skip it, Evelyn, trust me. This is more important. What should I bring? Any documents related to the education fund, and a notebook. A pause. Don't tell anyone. Not even your parents. The next morning, I wore the white blouse Grandma once gave me, the one she always said made me look like someone going somewhere. I didn't own a car, so I took 2 buses to reach Ruth's office. A weathered 3-story building in downtown Helena. Her office was on the 3rd floor with windows overlooking the lake. I sat in a velvet-cushioned wooden chair, palms still damp with sweat. Ruth entered holding a leather case. She looked stern, but there was something in her face that reminded me of Grandma Margaret. Understanding eyes, a posture that didn't yield. Evelyn, before I say anything else, I need you to confirm. Are you absolutely certain the funds were withdrawn without your written consent? I handed her the bank statement I'd pulled. My name sat above a bold $0.00 balance, with a note that read, transferred under family authorization. I never signed anything. I was never informed, I said. Ruth flipped through the pages, nodded. Just as I feared. Now let's move on to what your grandmother prepared. She opened the case and pulled out a thick stack of papers and a sealed ivory envelope. Margaret didn't just establish a college fund. She tied it to a legally binding clause. If any funds were withdrawn without the beneficiary's written approval, that's you. Then all her remaining assets would be frozen immediately. They can only be accessed again once the education trust is fully restored. My jaw dropped. Wait, she left other assets? Ruth smiled. More than you'd expect. But that's for later. What matters now is that by withdrawing the funds improperly, your parents have unknowingly locked themselves out of everything else, including her retirement accounts and real estate holdings in Texas. They had no idea? No. She intentionally requested that clause not be disclosed in the main will, only activated upon violation. And now, it has been. I leaned back in the chair, my heart thudding in my chest. Ruth slid the sealed envelope across the desk. This is her final letter to you, meant to be opened when the clause was triggered. And Evelyn, she looked me in the eye. She didn't just want to protect her money. She wanted to protect you from people willing to trade your future for a party's centerpiece. I clutched the envelope, throat tightening. I didn't know what I would do next. But I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't alone anymore. I left Henderson's law office with Grandma Margaret's letter clutched tightly in my hand, my heart feeling both hollow and on fire. On the bus ride home, Ruth's words still echoed in my mind. Your parents didn't just cross an ethical line, they violated the law. And in doing so, they've unknowingly cut themselves off from every remaining asset. Grandma's trap wasn't revenge, it was protection. A carefully built net by someone who had watched her own family unravel over money. A silent warning. If they dared to touch my future, they'd pay the price. That evening, when I returned home, the front door was wide open. I could hear my mother's voice rising in the living room. This can't be happening. I used that money for the family. Why would the bank freeze it? I quietly stepped closer, standing behind the half-closed door. My dad was on the phone, face flushed red, clutching freshly printed bank statements. I'm a joint account holder. How can access be denied? No, I didn't know about any clause. Margaret never said anything. My mother chimed in, her voice edged with panic. What about the final payment for the reception? Did you send it? I tried, Dad barked. Transfer was declined. They said it requires confirmation from Evelyn. The air in the house turned dense, heavy as stone. I pushed the door open. Mom flinched. Evelyn. You know something about this? I sat down across from them and pulled the envelope from my bag. Clearly marked with the law office's seal. Grandma knew this day would come. She left a clause. If my college fund was accessed without my legal consent, all her remaining assets, including retirement funds and real estate in San Antonio, would be frozen immediately. Dad shot up from his chair. No way. I'm a cosigner on that account. I have rights. You have a name on paper but no rights once you violate the terms. And you did. When you moved all of my college savings into Amanda's wedding budget, without my knowledge, you triggered the clause. Everything is now locked. Mom went pale, like someone had poured ice water over her. Can you authorize it again? I mean, if you agree, can we get access back? I shook my head. It doesn't work like that. Once the clause is triggered, access is only restored if the full amount is returned, principal and interest. According to Ruth Henderson, the current shortfall is $86,000. Not including interest. Silence fell like a brick wall. Dad sank into his chair, looking 10 years older in a matter of seconds. Mom folded her hands, like she was praying. Evelyn, please, you don't understand. I've sacrificed so much for this family. We've got over 150 guests coming, hotel bookings, catering, photography, all deposits paid. If we don't get that money, we'll be fined, humiliated. I gave a bitter laugh. You weren't this concerned when I lost my shot at Columbia, but suddenly, a reception deposit gets your blood boiling? That's interesting. Dad snapped. Are you trying to get back at us? Don't you see the whole family's in crisis? I tightened my fingers. I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to do. I'm the sole beneficiary of the education trust. The one Grandma trusted. The one this family betrayed. Amanda suddenly walked in, wearing a pink robe, hair still damp from a shower. What's going on in here? Mom got up, almost tearful. Amanda, there's a small issue with the final wedding payment. A small issue? I let out a short laugh. You mean the part where they stole my college fund and now triggered the freeze on Grandma's entire estate? Amanda stared at me. What are you talking about? I stood, meeting her eyes. Grandma wrote a legal condition. When Mom and Dad took my education money, they triggered it. Now, no one can access a cent. Her jaw dropped. Oh, what? You can fix it, right? Just sign something, let them use part of it. We just need to save the wedding. No, I cut her off. I'm not signing anything. Because this isn't about money anymore. This is about justice. I turned and walked up the stairs, leading behind a rising tide of chaos. At the bottom of the steps, Mom choked out, "We're going to lose everything." Dad slammed his fist on the wooden table. Why would she do this? Why would she put Evelyn above the whole family? I stopped on the third step, not turning around. Because she was the only one in this house who saw me as a person, not as a resource to be used. St. Thomas Church sat nestled in the Glacier Valley like an ancient castle tucked among pine trees. The sky that day was unnaturally blue, the sunlight so crisp that each leaf cast a sharp shadow on the white stone path outside the gate. A perfect day for a wedding. At least, to the outside world. I walked slowly into the hall, wearing a simple navy dress. The only thing in my closet that passed my mother's appropriate standards. My name wasn't on the printed guest list, but the usher seemed to have been informed. She gave a small nod and guided me to the very last row, beside a thick pillar that blocked most of the view. No one turned around, no welcoming smiles, no invite to join the family photos. I didn't need any. I wasn't there to celebrate, I was there to observe. To witness exactly what Grandma Margaret once called the long descent into delusion. The music swelled as Amanda appeared in an ivory Vera Wang gown, its train trailing over 10 feet, lined with delicate pearls. The guests rose in unison. I remained seated. My mother cried. Genuinely cried. Even though 2 days ago she was begging me to sign the access reinstatement form, like I was some bank clerk. My father looked like he had aged a decade in a single week. I saw him hiss something under his breath as the wedding coordinator approached him with the final invoice. He didn't sign. The man walked away, his face blank. The ceremony played out like any high-budget wedding film. The bride beamed. The groom, Zachary, a young real estate lawyer, recited vows that sounded scripted from a primetime drama. I heard none of it. I only saw my father, folding the paper that read, "Credit card declined," and tucking it into his blazer pocket. After the ceremony, guests were invited to the reception at the Fairmont Chateau. I thought about going home, but a part of me needed to see how this play ended. I boarded the shuttle with distant relatives. No one recognized me until an elderly woman whispered, "Aren't you Evelyn, the youngest Turner girl?" I nodded. She smiled faintly, then looked away. The venue looked like a dream. Chandeliers, floating floral arrangements, French wine chilled in silver buckets. But I noticed something different. The staff had begun clearing out secondary buffet tables. One whispered something to my mother, and her face drained of color. I sat near the entrance, away from the traffic of servers. An hour later, as the dancing began, my father pulled my mother outside. I followed quietly. They stood near the hydrangea-lined fence, speaking in tense whispers. "All the cards are frozen. The short-term loan was rejected yesterday. Do you get it? There's no way to pay for this reception. You have to do something, Turner. If we don't pay tonight, the hotel can cancel the honeymoon package and demand prepayment for every service we've used." I cleared my throat gently. "What's going on?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. My mom turned around. Her eyes rimmed red. "Evelyn, please, just sign the release. We'll pay you back." "I don't need the money," I said calmly. "I need respect. I need them to know I'm not a resource for their performance." My father slammed his hand against the railing. "This is family. How can you stand by and watch everything collapse?" I looked at him, feeling a strange calm settle over me. "Dad, things didn't start falling apart today. They started the moment you took my tuition fund without a word. This wedding? It's just the curtain finally falling." Suddenly my mother's phone rang. She answered, and from the look on her face, I knew something worse had just hit. "What? No. No, how can they cancel the honeymoon suite? We already booked it." I turned back toward the reception hall, leaving the two of them sinking in the mess they made. As I crossed the dance floor, Amanda and Zach were spinning under the lights, smiling, laughing, oblivious. Not yet. I took a seat and poured myself a glass of water, my eyes drawn to the chandelier above, glittering like stars in a world that was never mine. Just 3 weeks after the wedding, they once called the beginning of a new era for the Turner family, the entire house descended into chaos. Like a never-ending drizzle over the Montana plains. Amanda and Zach had moved into the downstairs living room after their lease was canceled. The landlord discovered the deposit check bounced. Their credit card had been declined. Friction built quickly. Now that no one could pretend to be the successful one. The money was gone. My mother's precious Montana Hills Club membership, where she boasted about afternoon tea with the town's ladies, had been revoked after 3 months of unpaid dues. I saw the cancellation letter in the mailbox, printed boldly in red. "Membership canceled." She stuffed it under a pile of magazines, but I saw it. Just like I saw all the other envelopes, the banks, the credit card companies, and the venue, demanding final payment with a legal warning attached. The house felt like a ticking time bomb, and I was the only one not holding the fuse. That night, I was typing up a scholarship application for a private foundation when Mom knocked on my door. No scolding, no tears, just a breath of a voice. "Evelyn, can you come downstairs for a minute? The family needs your help." I followed her to the dining room. Dad sat at the head of the table, Amanda next to him. Her eyes red, but her face cold. Zach wasn't there. Mom pulled out a chair for me across from them. You know what's going on, Dad began. We've hit a wall. All accounts are locked. So? I replied evenly. If you sign this, Mom said, sliding a stack of papers toward me. Just a simple consent to allow us partial access to the trust. Enough to pay for the honeymoon and a few pending contracts. The bank might reconsider and reopen the rest. Partial access? I smirked. It was for the wedding before. Now it's just a little help? And after that? Amanda jumped in. Can you stop acting? You already have everything. While the rest of us are drowning, you're just sitting there like some damn princess watching us sink. I locked eyes with her. I'm not acting. I'm holding on to what's mine. You can call that selfish or cold. I don't care anymore. Mom's aging herself to keep this house afloat, Amanda hissed. And you won't budge. She once looked me in the eye and called me selfish for wanting an education. I haven't forgotten. And if she's tired now, it's from the weight of her own choices. The air thickened. I stood up. I'm not signing. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Dad slammed his palm on the table. You don't see her dragging this family off a cliff? I'm just letting the family face the cliff they dug themselves. It's not my fault it's this deep. I turned to walk away, but Amanda leapt up, rounded the table, and smack, a burning slap landed across my cheek. Everything froze. I raised my hand to my face. No crying. No flinching. I just stared at her. Thank you. Amanda stepped back, stunned. What did you just say? Thank you, I repeated. Because you just proved Grandma right, that she was the only one who ever truly protected me in this house. That greed, whether wrapped in wedding gowns or sweet words, is still greed. Mom broke into sobs. Dad looked away. Amanda stood still, her hand trembling from the blow. I walked back to my room. The door closed behind me with the finality of a declaration. I wasn't the quiet girl from 2 years ago. I was Evelyn Turner. And I would not sign away my value again. The next day, an email popped up from the Clover Foundation. Congratulations, Evelyn, you're in. I smiled. Not from the thrill of victory, but from the quiet certainty that I had chosen me. And no one would take that away from me, ever again. 3 months after the wedding they once called the dawn of a new chapter for the Turner family, the nameplate The Turners was removed from the pale cream house at 4788 Maple Street. I heard the news from Mrs. Felton, our old neighbor who still fed the stray cats on the porch. She called me in a whispery, excited tone. Your mother moved out this morning. The moving truck blocked the whole street. They left a note for the new owners. Looks like a young couple from Missoula. I wasn't surprised. After my parents hired a private attorney to sue Ruth Henderson for breach of fiduciary duty, the federal court took just 30 minutes to dismiss the case. The final ruling affirmed every clause Grandma Margaret set up was legal, irreversible, and that there was no misconduct on the part of the estate attorney. The legal fees were the final blow to finances already decaying from the inside out. I didn't return to witness them move out. But I saw the pictures, sent by an old friend from the neighborhood. In one, my mother stood beside a cardboard box, hair pinned up but messy. My father, now gaunt and grayer than I ever remembered, was arguing with the moving truck driver over an unpaid invoice. Amanda wasn't in the pictures. I had moved into a small apartment near Columbia University. The scholarship from the Clover Foundation covered not only full tuition but also enough living expenses for me to live independently and debt-free. The apartment was just a notch larger than a dorm, but it had a big window overlooking a tiny park and a clean electric stove. I placed Grandma Margaret's photo on the bookshelf, right next to her final birthday card. One evening in early October, just as I was steeping tea, the doorbell rang. It was Amanda. No satin dress, no designer handbag. Just a light gray sweater, faded jeans, and her hair tied back loosely. And for the first time, I saw a real person. Not the image our family tried to paint. "Do you have a few minutes?" she asked. I nodded and opened the door. She stepped in, her eyes scanning the cozy, modest space. "This place? It's yours?" "Ugh." We sat at my tiny dining table. No one spoke for the first few seconds. Then she exhaled. "I'm sure you've heard everything. About Mom and Dad. About Zach." I nodded gently. The news had spread quickly. Zach filed for divorce 8 weeks after the wedding. The reason listed: irreconcilable differences in lifestyle and financial expectations. In plain English, my family wasn't as rich as he thought. "You don't have to forgive me," Amanda began. "And I'm not here to ask for money or anything. I just needed to talk." I stayed quiet, listening. When Grandma passed, I thought things would get easier. Money, the wedding, the family image. I never thought she'd leave everything in your hands. But looking back, I understand why. She let out a quiet, regretful laugh. "You're the only one in the family with a real backbone. You held your ground when no one respected you. And I was jealous." I didn't speak, but my chest didn't feel heavy anymore. Something in her voice, finally, carried no expectations. Just truth. "I'm working at a mental health clinic in a small town near Butte. Every day teaches me that when you lose everything, you find what matters." "And what did you find?" I asked. "Myself," she said. "And you, Evelyn? You did what none of us had the courage to do. You drew a line, and you kept it." She stood up. "Thank you for listening. I know I lost the chance to be a real sister. But if one day you need someone beside you instead of across from you, I hope you'll think of me." I walked her to the door. When it closed behind her, I could still see her silhouette in the glass. Small, imperfect, but real. That night, I sat by the window. The autumn wind fluttered Grandma's photo. I thought about what she had done. Not to punish but to empower. Not just the power to hold money, but to say no. To protect my future. To write my own story. I was no longer Evelyn Turner, the overlooked youngest daughter at family dinners. I was Evelyn, the one Grandma believed in. The woman rebuilding her life with her own hands and resolve. And for the first time in years, I knew I wasn't living to please anyone anymore. I was living to be myself. That Thanksgiving reunion was held at my uncle's house, Uncle Richard, the only person in the family who invited me without attaching conditions. I hesitated. But then I realized I didn't have to keep running. And I didn't have to sit in silence either. I wasn't going to make peace. I was going to close a chapter. His home sat on the outskirts of Bozeman, backed by early-season snowfields. When I walked in, the room seemed to freeze for a moment. My mother sat at the tea table, wrapped in an old wool coat, her hair no longer meticulously curled. My father was pouring cider. Amanda sat in the corner, cupping a steaming mug, eyes briefly meeting mine, before dropping. "Evelyn, you came," my mother said, her voice trembling as if that alone could erase the past. I nodded politely and took the wooden chair near the fireplace. No one spoke. The only sound was a kettle whistling in the kitchen. At last, Uncle Richard gently placed a hand on my shoulder and asked, "Would you like to say something?" I stood, my gaze sweeping the room, a space that had served as the stage for countless family performances over the years. I looked into the eyes that had once made me feel small, insufficient, unworthy. Now, those eyes were tired, empty, and still unaware of what they'd truly lost. "I just want to say one thing," I began, steady and calm. "For years, I believed if I worked harder, sacrificed more, I'd finally be seen. That if I stayed quiet, things would smooth over. But they didn't. My silence only made you think I agreed with how I was treated. I paused, turning to my mother. You called me selfish when I talked about college. You called Amanda hope, someone who deserved a second chance. And me? I was just your emergency wallet. She opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. I don't need your apology. I don't need you to say, you didn't know. Because you did. You just chose not to care. I turned to my father. You always said, family comes first. But when I needed a question answered, a hug, you chose your hollow reputation instead. I took a deep breath. I'm not here to blame, I'm here to forgive. The air shifted. My mother looked at me like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. But not because you deserve it. Because I deserve to let go. My mother cried. Quietly. Without drama. For once. Evelyn, I lost you, didn't I? I stepped forward, placing my hand on the table where hers clenched the edge of the napkin. You didn't lose me. You just didn't try to keep me. I turned to Amanda, who had remained silent. Thank you for coming to see me. I can see you're trying. That matters. I hope you find peace. Not under stage lights, but in yourself. She nodded, her eyes glassy. I picked up my coat and stepped into the early winter breeze. It wasn't cold. I felt lighter than I had in years, as if I'd been carrying a house built on broken expectations on my back. And I'd finally put it down. The next week, I returned to New York to begin my first semester in Library and Information Science at Columbia. The campus was grand, historic, full of people who knew nothing about me, which was more beautiful than anyone could imagine. I moved into a smaller apartment, sharing it with my boyfriend Tyler, whom I'd met at the public library. He worked in data systems. Quiet, but always listening. Once, I told him about Grandma Margaret. He gently placed his hand on her photo and said, "She raised you from afar. And you've kept every part of that love intact." One afternoon, while organizing rare books in the university library, I stumbled across an old leather-bound notebook titled, Stories That Deserve to Be Told. I didn't know who left it there. But I smiled. Because I knew exactly what I would write on the first page. My name is Evelyn Turner, and for the first time, I'm the one holding the pen. Evelyn's story is a powerful reminder that family ties should never require the sacrifice of your self-worth. In real life, many stay silent to keep the peace, only to lose opportunities and themselves. But like Evelyn, setting boundaries and defending your future isn't selfish, it's growth. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, it means choosing freedom. And sometimes the most important journey is learning how to live without needing validation from those who once dismissed you. What do you think of Evelyn's choice? Would you have the courage to do the same? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful family stories to come. My name is Amelia, and I've always considered myself frugal, practical, and led a rational life. Everyone says I'm great at saving, always cautious with every dollar I earn. But who would have thought that my rationality would end up making me the one to bear the financial burden for my family for the past 5 years? Every month, I quietly transferred $2,500, 0 cents, to keep their house from being foreclosed. $1 after another, it went into their bank account, while I was left with long hours of work, never allowing myself to enjoy anything. In my eyes, they were family, and I thought I was doing the right thing. But today, sitting in my apartment, staring at the foreclosure notice from the bank, I can't help but wonder, am I the biggest fool alive? Amelia, where are you going? My sister Laura's voice came through the line. She was sitting in her bright kitchen, waving the cocktail she'd just made. I could hear the music from her gathering, the laughter of everyone around. You should really join us on this trip, Amelia. Bali, don't you think life's too short? When will you ever take time for yourself? I took a sip of water, trying to suppress the frustration bubbling inside me. It's okay, sis. I've got a few work projects to handle. I'm good. I forced a smile. even though deep down I just wanted to shout. Laura laughed, while I mentally calculated how many overtime hours I had to work just to keep their house from being taken away. "Oh, you can't keep living like this," my mom's voice chimed in, as though she was sitting right next to me. She adjusted her new sunglasses and looked at her reflection in the window. "Amelia, you can't just keep working all the time. When will you live a little?" The whole family laughed and poked fun at me. They didn't know that every month I had been silently transferring $2,500.00 into their bank account to pay the mortgage. They didn't know that while they were out shopping, traveling, and living lavishly, I was working myself to the bone to help them keep their house. I never complained, never said a word. And now, looking at what I've done, I can feel the anger rising inside me. I could hear their laughter from the other end of the line, and Laura continued, "You know, she just likes staying at home and working. Probably doesn't have much fun." All of them, even my dad, the ones who should have understood me best, thought of me as the boring one, the one who just worked all the time. And there I was, sitting quietly in the corner of that call, silently enduring their coldness. Hours later, when my mom called to talk about some home repairs, I couldn't stop thinking about the foreclosure notices I found in my dad's desk drawer. Papers with their signatures, bank notices demanding immediate payment, and loans they had hidden from me. This wasn't the first time I had discovered this. But this time, it felt like something inside me broke. I had been deceived. They had hidden everything from me, and I had unknowingly been carrying the financial weight of the family, while they spent recklessly. I hung up the phone and looked at the foreclosure notice sitting on my desk. They knew. They had always known. Every month I transferred money to them, they spent it on unnecessary things, and I, foolishly, thought I was helping my family. The unanswered questions kept swirling in my mind. Why did I let them do this? Why did I let my family take advantage of my kindness all these years? Was I destroying myself for a family that had used me like an ATM? After that call, I felt like everything within me had changed. All the sacrifices, the efforts that went unappreciated, suddenly became painfully clear. But what hurt the most wasn't the money that had gone into that house. It was how my family always viewed me as nothing more than a financial tool. An ATM fueled by kindness. A week later, the family dinner where I had planned to confront them arrived. But before I could face the truth, I had to endure a barrage of mocking comments from them. That evening, when I arrived at my parents' house, I realized they were still living in their own little world. My mother, as usual, was flaunting her new handbag and the expensive fur coat she had just found at a luxury store. "You know, Amelia, you never spend anything on yourself. I told you, life's short, why not enjoy it?" she said while admiring herself in the mirror, pulling her skirt up to check the perfection of her outfit. I clenched my fists and nodded, feeling like I was being suffocated. But as soon as I entered the living room, my father's gaze made me uncomfortable. He was sitting on the couch, flipping through the newspaper, as usual. But I knew he was waiting for me to say something about the money I had been sending to them for the past 5 years. My sister Laura, who always took pride in her travels, continued to mock me. "She just buries herself in work and never thinks about herself. I really don't understand. Amelia, don't you ever think about taking a break?" She kept laughing, while I stood there, hands gripping my purse, saying nothing. My brother Tanner couldn't miss the chance to tease me, as always. He had always lived a lavish lifestyle, spending money on expensive hobbies without a care in the world. "Hey Amelia, do you know where I can get a cheap car? I'm looking for an SUV for a trip. I heard there's a 2018 used one, but could you help me out a little?" he said while chewing on his bread, his eyes challenging me. At that moment, I wanted to rush at him and tell him everything I had done these past years, but I stayed silent, knowing that he never cared about what I had done. The dinner turned into a rehearsal of how my family disrespects me. While I sat there, listening to all their mocking and sarcastic remarks, I couldn't stop thinking about the price I had paid over the years. They lived in luxury, vacations, expensive shopping trips, while I still worked hard to pay off debts they never wanted to face. I began to wonder if they realized just how much they had taken advantage of me. But as I pushed my chair back and stood up to leave the table, my father unexpectedly called me back. "Amelia, you're leaving? Eat a little more, darling. We don't want you to go without anything." His words rang out, but inside I felt like something shattered. He didn't see that I had sacrificed everything I had, devoted my life to worrying about this family, only to be seen as the boring and uninteresting one. At night, I couldn't sleep. Their mocking words kept echoing in my mind, and I couldn't take it anymore. I was so tired of always being the one behind the scenes. Always the one saving everything but never being acknowledged. I remembered a time when my father told me, "Maybe living frugally isn't fun." Those words felt like a knife cutting into my heart. And then, in a quiet moment that night, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't live like this anymore. I had had enough. The next day, I decided I would no longer stay silent. That family dinner would be the moment I revealed the truth. I would no longer be their ATM. I would not allow myself to continue being taken advantage of. Everything seemed to have gone too far, but I couldn't stop. My silence had become a cage, and I had patiently waited for the moment I would break free. But the truth always has a way of finding those ready to face it. One afternoon, while cleaning out the storage room, I accidentally discovered something that made my heart stop for a beat. It was an old box that my father had hidden in the dark corner of the storage room, a place I never paid much attention to. I opened the box, and inside were old papers, worn with the passage of time. These weren't the kind of papers a child would want to find in their parents' house. They were foreclosure notices, warning letters from the bank, and loans that my parents had signed for, all under my brother Max's name. I held the papers in my hand, my heart tightening. I had suspected for a long time that something wasn't right, but I couldn't believe my family had been hiding this much from me. I didn't realize that all these years, while I was sending money to their account, they had huge mortgage loans that I never knew about. All those months I quietly contributed to that house, thinking I was saving them from bankruptcy, I was actually helping them cover up debts they couldn't pay. Max, my brother, the one who lived a life of luxury, never in need of anything, was the one behind all these loans. He had used the family home as collateral for borrowing money, while I had been living in poverty, unaware that I was being exploited. The feeling I had at that moment was indescribable. I felt betrayed, like I had been led on for all these years. For the first time in my life, I felt the injustice within my own family. I couldn't believe my parents had allowed Max to do this without telling me. It felt like they had used my trust, my love, as a free ticket to cover their debts. At that moment, I realized that all my sacrifices had been in vain. Every month I worried, sweating it out working, cutting down my expenses, all just to keep their house from being foreclosed, while they continued to live a lavish life I was never allowed to be a part of. They never once asked me if I was okay, if I was tired, or if I needed help. They just kept taking, never giving anything back. I began to wonder if they had ever truly considered me a part of the family, or if I was just a tool to help them maintain their extravagant lifestyle. As I continued to flip through the papers, I saw that these loans weren't just regular financial issues. They had hidden everything from me. Max had signed for 3 large loans, all related to the house I still thought was the family's, but now it had become his collateral. The real financial situation of my family wasn't the luxury gifts they bought for themselves. It was a mountain of debt waiting to collapse. That's when I understood. They had never needed me for kindness or love, but because I was the only one who could help them maintain the perfect facade. I had done everything without ever questioning them. And now, as I looked at the undeniable evidence in my hands, I realized that I had been deceived. The anger continued to rise within me, but it wasn't just anger. It was disappointment. I had been too easily swayed by promises, too quick to overlook all the signs of deceit. I had let myself become a pawn in their game. But from today on, I would no longer be that way. I wouldn't continue to live in their shadow. I stood up, holding the papers, and decided I wouldn't let them sit in that box for another second. I had to do something. Had to put an end to the life I had built on lies and exploitation. The truth was clear, and now it was time for me to face it. The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about what I had discovered. The anger, the disappointment, and the feeling of betrayal were overwhelming. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let my family take advantage of me anymore. They had exploited my love and kindness for all these years, and it was time for me to expose everything. It was time for me to face the truth and speak up about everything I had silently endured. I couldn't sleep last night. The image of the dark room with the box full of loan papers, foreclosures, and hidden secrets kept running through my mind. I couldn't let things go on like this anymore. If I didn't do something, I would continue to be their puppet, paying the price for the lies they built. I decided that tonight at the family dinner, I would confront them all. I wouldn't stay silent any longer. I wouldn't keep everything inside for another minute. It was time for them to realize that I wasn't the easy target they once thought. They thought they could keep pushing me into the role of the family savior, but now, I would show them what they had done. When I arrived at the house, my parents were busy preparing dinner. My mother was in the kitchen, unaware of the seriousness of what was about to happen. My father, as usual, was sitting on the couch watching TV, not paying attention to me. But today I didn't want to stay quiet anymore. I walked straight to the dining table, where everyone was gathering. My sister Laura and my brother Max were already there, chatting happily, unaware of the change in me. Everything seemed normal, but I could feel that something was different in the air. Looking at my parents, Max and Laura, I felt like an outsider. All those years of taking care of them, sacrificing for them, now felt empty. My mother was still bragging about the luxurious trips my sister and I never got to join, while I could only keep silent and endure. Max continued talking about all the promising investment projects, which I knew were nothing but scams. I couldn't stand it anymore. "Hey everyone," I began, my voice calm but firm. "I have something important to say." The whole family turned to look at me, their attention now on me. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. It felt like I was being engulfed by a storm, but I couldn't turn back now. I had to do this. For the past 5 years I've quietly paid the mortgage for this house. Every month, I've sent $2,500, 0 cents, to keep your home from being taken away. I did it thinking I was helping my family. But now I realize I've just been a sheep being used. My entire family was shocked. My mother frowned, Max stopped talking, and my father looked at me, his face confused. But I didn't stop. I kept going. The truth is, I just found some papers in the storage room. The mortgages that Mom and Dad signed. All of them were under Max's name. The massive debts I never knew about. You've been hiding everything from me, and I've unknowingly become the one saving you. Max stood up, his face angry. What? What are you talking about? He tried to stay calm, but I could hear the worry in his voice. I don't need to explain further, I said, opening my bag and pulling out a series of documents I had prepared. These are the foreclosure notices. These are the loan papers you've hidden from me. I've worked hard to pay these off. But you've never treated me like family. You've used me. My mother started stammering. Amelia, you don't understand. You can't do this to your family. She reached for my hand as if trying to stop me. But I didn't move. Family? Yes, Mom. But family isn't about treating me as a financial tool. Family isn't about laughing at my savings while you waste money on luxuries. The room went silent. Max stared at me with an angry look. but I could see the hint of worry in his eyes. My mother started crying, but not because of remorse, but because of the loss. She felt everything slipping through her fingers. "You've exploited me long enough," I continued. "And now, none of you can blame me anymore. I've done enough, and I won't keep helping you." Max sneered, turning to my father. "She really wants to kick us out of the house?" He couldn't accept the truth. "No," I replied, my voice steady. "I will never let myself continue doing this. But now, it's time for you to take care of yourselves. You've exploited me for too long. I won't stay silent anymore." The atmosphere in the dining room was heavy, as if a storm was about to break. Everyone sat in silence, no one daring to speak. I had made up my mind that today would be the day when everything had to end. And I knew that this confrontation, painful as it was, would be the first step in freeing myself from my family's manipulation. As I stood up and opened my purse, the curious eyes of my parents, my sister Laura, and my brother Max were all focused on me. They didn't understand that they were about to face the truth they had tried so hard to hide. I pulled out a stack of papers and began to lay the documents on the table. These were copies of foreclosure notices, the loans Max had taken, all laid out clearly. "These are the payments I've made for this house over the past 5 years," I started, my voice calm but firm. "Every month, I've sent you $2,500, 0 cents. And while I saved every penny to keep your house from being lost, you went on vacations, renovated the house and went shopping." I looked at Max. He was sitting there, his face frozen, unable to say a word. I knew he couldn't deny the truth. I continued, opening the file further and pointing to some travel expenses I had found on my bank accounts. "These are the payments from March, when I transferred money to you to pay the debts. And here's the trip to Cancun that Laura took during the same period," I said, pointing to a receipt I had printed from social media. "And, Mom, I also have the bills from the kitchen renovation you did in April." My whole family fell silent. My mom stopped laughing. Her face grew tense. She turned to look at my dad, but no one spoke. Max stood up and began pacing the room. I could feel the anxiety in his every step. "You can't do this to your family, Amelia," Max started, trying to stay calm. "I know you work hard, but this can't be as simple as you're making it." "Yes, I know I've worked hard, but you and the whole family have exploited me for too long. Do you think I'm worth nothing but giving you money?" I couldn't hold back the anger anymore. "This house, do you think it would still be standing without me? You took out all the mortgages on it without me knowing. Even Dad let you do this." My dad, the one I always turned to for protection, was now sitting in silence. My mom, with her eyes filled with worry, could only look down at the table, unable to face me. "Now I understand," I continued, feeling an unusual sense of peace as these words came out of my mouth. "I'm not sending you money anymore. I won't help you maintain a life you don't deserve." At this, Laura looked up at me with a defiant glare. "Do you really think you can do this? We're family. You can't just leave us hanging like this. You can't let us go bankrupt." "So what do you think I am?" I shot back, staring straight into her eyes. "You've lived a lavish life, while I've only known how to work and keep quiet. You've made me sacrifice things that I deserve. But no, I won't do that anymore. I'm not going to help you live this life anymore." Max stared at me for a moment, then lowered his voice. "I think she's really gone mad." He tried to downplay it, but I couldn't bear the truth anymore. "This is the truth, Max. And you all are going to face it," I said. "I'm not the fool anymore. I won't keep paying for your lives." I took out a copy of the loans that Max had signed under his name. "These are the 3 loans Max took. He used our house as collateral to get the money. And all of this, I've been paying for. I've been paying for him, and all of you every month. Did you know that?" My mother couldn't speak anymore. She sat silently, her eyes seeming to search for forgiveness. But I was no longer someone who would forgive so easily. I knew that it was time to end this. It was time for me to not only live for myself, but also to stand up and protect myself from the people I once loved the most. Because the truth is never wrong, no matter how painful it may be. Family, I concluded. Yes, we are family, but family is not about exploiting each other. And today, I won't be the one saving anymore. I won't continue being a tool for you to live your lavish life. You will have to take care of yourselves. My whole family sat there, silent. That dinner, everything changed forever. A few days after the justice dinner, the atmosphere in my family was still tense, as if it hadn't dissipated at all. Everyone kept calling, texting, trying to explain themselves and reconnect with me, but I had cut off contact. Everything was too clear now. There was no reason for me to continue helping those who had exploited me for so many years. The first thing I noticed was the change in their attitude. Max, my brother, who had never been one to admit defeat, had become discouraged. The investments he used to boast about, the amazing opportunities he wanted me to join, were now nothing but disappointment. I knew he had lost a lot of money from the risky investments I had warned him about. Yesterday, I overheard a conversation between him and a friend, where he admitted that he might have to face bankruptcy, as all the loans and projects he had poured money into had no future. Jayla, my sister, wasn't doing any better. She had just lost a major sponsorship contract from a company she had partnered with for years. Her partners called to cancel the contract after information about my family was leaked online. Although Jayla had always flaunted her lavish life, she could no longer hide the fact that her income depended on maintaining a perfect image on social media. After I publicly revealed the truth about my family relying on money I had paid, the sponsor decided to cut ties with her. Travel projects, advertising contracts, everything came crashing down in just a few days. My mother began to show her disappointment, not only because of what I had done, but also because she felt like she was losing what she had hoped for in life. She cried a lot in the past days, saying that I had hurt the family, but I didn't feel guilty. Sometimes, I even wonder if I was wrong to have helped them for so long. I had spent so much time and effort doing things they never appreciated, only to be discarded like a tool when they had everything they needed. The only surprising thing was my father. He had stayed silent all week, not trying to reach out to me nor saying anything to my mother about how to mend the cracks in the family. Although he didn't speak out against what I had done, I could feel a change in the way he looked at me. No longer was there pity or hope that I would come back to help. Instead, it was as if he acknowledged he had been wrong, the whole family had been wrong. But this wouldn't change what had happened. In the following days I began to feel a strange sense of relief. The feeling of freedom. I no longer had to worry about what my family would do when I wasn't there to keep them safe. Everything was now in their hands, and they had to figure it out. I didn't have to stay up late working extra hours to pay their debts anymore. No more midnight calls or text messages asking for money for ridiculous reasons. I also noticed that, with each passing day, my life started to feel more meaningful. I no longer felt pressured to live according to others' expectations. No longer did I feel the need to prove to them that I was responsible, that I was trustworthy. Now I only lived for myself, for the things I wanted to do, without sacrificing my own happiness for the family. Although I had severed all financial ties with my family, I couldn't stop thinking about them. But I knew that if I continued to prolong this situation, I would never be able to live for myself. I had learned a valuable lesson. Family can love each other, but that doesn't mean we have to sacrifice everything just to keep them in our protective arms. Sometimes, the greatest love is letting go, and allowing them to figure things out for themselves. But in the past 3 years, I had taken the first step in my journey to independence. And no matter what happens, I would never go back. Because I had decided that I would never allow myself to continue being the person I was in the past. Someone who was exploited and manipulated. Now, I am the one creating my own life. And that is the freedom I'd been seeking for so long. I lifted my head high and looked ahead. Life is not always easy, but I know I will never go backward again. A few weeks after the justice dinner, I realized that I was standing at a significant crossroads in my life. No longer just the daughter who lived for the family, but now I had to rebuild myself. I had paid too much for things I should never have paid for. I had loved, sacrificed, and placed my trust in people who never appreciated me. But now, everything had changed. That day, when I looked in the mirror, I no longer saw the patient, enduring girl. I saw a strong, decisive woman. Someone who was no longer afraid to face the truth about my family. And most importantly, I saw someone standing firm on their own feet, no longer pressured by the people who had exploited me. I decided not to return to those days anymore. I didn't want to live in a world of dependency and manipulation, a world of late-night calls, unreasonable requests for money that I kept accepting. I decided to step out of the darkness and find a home of my own, a place where I could rebuild my life. Finding a home wasn't easy. I didn't have enough money to buy a luxurious house immediately. But I started with small steps. I began researching the real estate market, attending financial counseling sessions, and making serious savings plans. It was a long process. But with each step, I felt stronger, more confident in my abilities. One day, I found a small, charming house on the outskirts of the city. It wasn't a large, extravagant house, but it had an airy space and a small garden I had always dreamed of. That house was where I could start anew, a place where I could live freely without worrying about debts or requests from my family. I decided to put down a deposit right away. This decision marked a major turning point in my life. When I signed the contract for the house, I felt a deep change within myself. This wasn't just a house. It was a symbol of freedom. It was a place where I could breathe easily, a place where I could step away from the financial and emotional chaos that my family had created. I started imagining the days ahead when I could do the things I loved, travel, attend the courses I had always dreamed of, and most of all, I no longer had to worry about the debts I had carried for so many years. A week after I moved into the new house, I received a call from Deacon. He was the friend who had helped me so much during the difficult months. He was the only one in my family, besides Violet, who truly understood my pain and encouraged me to step out of that spiral. "Are you okay?" Deacon asked, his voice soft but with some concern. "I'm fine," I replied, feeling a sense of relief as I said those words. "I've moved into the new house, and I'm starting to rebuild my life." "That's amazing," he laughed. "I knew you could do it. You're stronger than you think." I thanked Deacon and realized that, besides finding the new house, I had discovered an even greater change within myself. I was no longer the weak girl who only aimed to please others. I was now an independent woman, capable of protecting myself and choosing to live life my way. Soon after, I started attending workshops on investment and personal finance. I had decided not just to survive through the difficult days, but also to take control of my finances. I wanted to understand more about how investments worked, how to build a retirement fund, and how to never be dependent on anyone again. Once again, my life had changed. I was no longer the fool my family had once looked down upon. I was no longer the only one responsible for everything. Now, I stood strong on my own feet, making my own decisions and protecting myself. This awakening not only changed me, but also brought me an unprecedented sense of freedom. Freedom was not just about no longer carrying my family's debts, but living a life not trying to please anyone. I could do what I wanted, no longer having to sacrifice myself for those who didn't deserve it. I looked back on the road I had traveled and finally, I smiled. The pain, the betrayal, all of it had shaped a stronger person, someone ready to live true to themselves. Now, I was truly free. Amelia's story is a powerful reminder of the importance of protecting oneself in toxic family relationships. Through challenges and unappreciated sacrifices, Amelia learned that independence and self-respect are the most crucial elements in building a peaceful and happy life. Life isn't always easy, but when you face the truth and embrace change, you will find the freedom and strength to live authentically. What do you think about Amelia's journey? Have you ever faced a similar situation in your own family? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to follow the channel so you won't miss more inspiring stories about family life and the journey to freedom.